recording's on. And now I'm going to share my screen. I seem to have to do it in that order or it doesn't work, as I found out the hard way once. Juan sent me some of his photos. Let me just... Let me just open a couple of those up sometime today. Well, half my life is spent waiting on my laptop to do stuff for me. All right, open. Here we are. Not sure what's taking so long, but 1 megabyte, it's not big. All right, so a couple of things. First of all, I mean, look, I mean, hopefully some of you are in 267 right now, I would hope. Some of you have already taken it. But you guys understand that, you know, all the Adobe products, you have like a toolbar on the left-hand side, you have these control boxes on the right-hand side. If I see something, if I point to something over here on the right-hand side, and you don't have it on your interface, go to the Windows, pull down menu, and you can toggle just about anything on or off here that you know, ever wanted and more. So there's a couple of things here. One is I might try to give this a little bit of white balance, you know, take out whatever warmth or cool tones, you know, if there's a little too much blue or green to this or a little too much orange to this. Then I'll probably desaturate it or take out color, right? Then I might play around with trying to minimize any imperfections in the background, backdrop or whatever. Adjust contrast, things like that. Okay, so first things first. You know, it seems weird, but you know, there are these pre-built auto tone, auto contrast, and auto color tools. The auto tone and auto color sometimes are pretty good, and sort of taking out this actually cooled it off quite a bit. Kind of liked it warmer, to be honest. So sometimes I try those, auto tone, auto color, just to see what I get. All right, so I'm going to go to, image pull down. There's auto tone, auto color. Adjustments, that pops up another list here. So I can go to, let's see, hue, saturation. What does hue mean? Anybody have color theory? What does hue refer to? H-U-E.
Refers to color.
Yeah, it refers to the color value, right? So orange is a hue, blue is a hue. We have a bit of blue in here and violet, don't we? And we have quite a bit of orange and brown in here. And so saturation is the amount of color that you have. So I can slowly desaturate this, take out the color. I can desaturate it all the way if I want, right? I might just leave just a little bit of warmth in there for the time being anyway. Okay. So again, image pull down adjustments. There's a whole list of tools here that are helpful. If you have something that's too bright or too dark, right? Whereas for color, I used hue and saturation. Those are referring to color. I could go to exposure and I could, again, dramatically brighten or darken this photo. Go to image adjustments and go to brightness and contrast and try to make the darks darker and the brights brighter, right? To bring contrast to some of these things. Okay. So again, image pull down adjustments. There's a number of really helpful tools here that globally work across the image to brighten, change the contrast, adjust the coloration, those sorts of things, okay? Exposure, hue, saturation, brightness, and contrast are the two things I used. If you want to get more granular, you can use levels or curves, and that brings up a box where you can begin to adjust and look at the sort of mathematics of the physics behind the darks, the mid-tones, and the brightest portions of your photo, and adjust them accordingly. Make the darks brighter or darker, right? So here I'm just making the darks darker. Now I've adjusted that background quite a bit, haven't I? Now, it came at an expense, right? I don't really care for how grainy this is starting to look, the wood. So let me go ahead and undo that. Yeah, I like the wood better here. So one way to take care of that, if you have a background that's super white or super black, right? And so anytime you can take care of that stuff in the photo when you're taking the photo, so that you have less Photoshop work to do it, right? If this was pretty close, then I could probably adjust that just with some brightness and contrast settings, like I was just doing, right? And try to get rid of these folds and bright spots on the fabric underneath, and you can see where some of the tone and texture is here, right? And even a little piece of wood or fuzz or something there. That we weren't really that close here. So another route you can take is we can start to paint. This is just like using your fingers in kindergarten, except it's Photoshop. So here's the paintbrush tool. And then we have a color palette down here, right? I don't know if you can see my cursor, hopefully. But we have black and white, because we have a foreground and a background color. When I click on those, it brings up a color palette. I can, of course, adjust what I want. I'm just going to leave this at black. That seems more appropriate than bright red. Okay. And when I have the brush selected, I also have some brush settings up here. One of them is the size of the brush. I can make it bigger, really big, right? Or really tiny, right? All right, so I'm just gonna try to find some sort of medium size. Hardness is here. This is set to be round brush and with a hard edge, right? So suddenly you see the edges, right? I could also give it a soft edge, a feathered edge, and then it sort of fades in and out. I'm just gonna use that feathered edge. I'm just gonna pretend I'm Bob Ross for a minute. Maybe you guys know who Bob Ross was. Maybe you don't, I don't know. I'm just gonna see, when I wanna get close to that model, I'm gonna make sure that this thing can just blend in. And then out here, I can just sort of quickly color things in without being too careful. So over here, I can just start to move my mouse back and forth. It's right over here, I wanna be very deliberate as I move closer and closer to that edge of that model. I'm just gonna paint black over the top of this. And really at this point, I've covered the terrible major things. Now I just want to try to get rid of some of these seams where the background wasn't quite black. And so I just want to make sure that this fades to whatever's happening there. I'm just gonna go around carefully. Work my way all the way around. Now, this whole time I've been using my right hand with my mouse. And yet, what I found is it's really helpful to think about this left hand as having a role in this process with your keyboard. So with your keyboard, you can hit Control or Command plus and zoom in, and Command or Control minus and zoom out. I say Command for Macs and Control for Windows machines, PCs. Control plus, Control minus. I'm on a Mac, so Command plus, Command minus. Command 0 or Control 0 fits it to the screen, right? So I can zoom in, I can hold down my space bar, and then I can click around and pan. And I'm not going to suggest that you'll remember all these details right off or that you would guess them, but it comes with some practice, right? So, in order to learn how to use a tool skillfully, you got to practice a lot, right? Skill building, to become an expert in something, you need like 10,000 hours of experience, right? I think the science says, right? So get to know Photoshop. 10,000 hours later, you'll be a Photoshop magician. You'll be a bitsmith, if you will. A veritable Photoshop ninja. All right, so I'm going around this. I'm just working my way around and double checking things. Looks like there's a bright spot around here. Just want to try to fill that in a little bit. Right? And when you get really good, then you can start doing things like, photoshopping Godzilla in the background of your photos and stuff like that. Just don't turn those in for grades. All right, so Control 0, fit to screen. That one looks okay. Now we're a little too uncomfortably close to the edge over here and over here, right? That's something that Gabby mentioned, and I think we've harped on that quite a bit. So a couple things I'm gonna do. See this color palette? I have a foreground and a background. I'm gonna hit this arrow, and it's gonna switch them. So what was background is now foreground, and what was foreground is now background. So now the background is black. I'm going to go to image. Instead of going to adjustments, we've been going to image pull down and adjustments a lot, right? I'm going to go to image size and canvas size. So here in rotation, I could rotate or flip the image if I wanted to. Oh, that's scary. Okay, but image size, right? What that brings up is the size of the image and the resolution. So how many pixels in each of these inches, okay? I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. That's a helpful tool to know, but canvas size pops up. And what's going to tell us is it's going to tell us the width and the height, and we can adjust that. And we can add width and height. And not only that, but we can add it from, let's say, the top left or from the center. I'm going to just say from the center, radiating out. So if I like add an extra inch to the width, it's going to add half an inch to the left and half an inch to the right. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a little more breathing room. I'm going to be a little more dramatic than that. I'm going to say 50 and 30. Now I have a lot more space. And look, when it created more canvas, it looked at the background color and filled in the rest of the canvas with that background color. Okay, whereas if I'd left it the white as the background color, I would have had a white background. That would look weird, wouldn't it? Okay, and last, maybe I want to center this up. And so I can do the reverse of extending the canvas. I can crop things. That's what this little tool is here. This is the universal symbol for crop. It's that way in Word. It's that way in Photoshop. It's that way in, I don't know, anything else with, that you can crop things. What happens is it puts these ridiculously oversized handles on the edges, and I can click and I can drag. I can say, this space should be symmetrical to this space. In this gap over here, it'd be nice if those were actually kind of aligned. Then I hit enter and it's recropped. All right. There's still a little bit of warmth and brown and orange in this. I can always go back again, image adjustments, hue saturation. I could just take out all the color if I want, or I could leave it with a little bit of that warmth. Of course, you could colorize, but please don't do that. I'm sorry I showed that to you even. All right. Let's see. So yeah, image pull down, adjustments, auto tone, auto contrast, auto color, canvas size, rotation. Let's say you took something vertically, but your camera turned it horizontally, and you need to rotate it 90 degrees, right? Here you go. This is the tool for you. Then you can rotate this thing to your heart's content and more. Go ahead and undo that. That's just silly. Let's try this one, or maybe this one. This one has some shadows in it. So does this one. This one's kind of boring. No offense, it just is. Let's try this one. Yeah, because this one has a background I need to clean up as well. Should we try it one more time, or am I boring you guys to death?
One more time, please.
Okay, I thought maybe I'd put you guys to sleep. All right, great. So, yeah, all right, the first things first. Let's take a look at this auto color. Yeah, okay. I don't like that cool filter it's using, so I'm just gonna undo that. I prefer a little warmer. All right, so adjustments, image pull down adjustments. Let's go to hue saturation. Let's double check that. Let's take out some of this color. See what we're really up against here. Okay, so we have quite a few grays. We have this texture of the fabric. All right, so we have some work to do. And not to mention, there's actually a little bit of blurring here in the foreground. You can't unblur things in Photoshop. Suffice to say, all those CSI television shows where they do like the algorithm, then they suddenly can enhance the camera feed like 100 times magnitude, that doesn't exist. You can't just make up information and expect it to be real. All right, so back to reality here. All right, so we've adjusted the color. Let's see here. Yeah, exposure, brightness, contrast, right? So we're going to deal with the lighting and the contrast, right? So the difference between the darkest things and the brightest things. I'm going to try brightness and contrast. Let's see what happens when I just change the contrast here. We're getting there. I'm going some places there. Maybe. Yeah, not so bad. What I wonder is if I go to, again, I'm just going back. I keep going back to the same pull down menu, the same menu. Image pull down, adjustments. This time I'm going to open up exposure. Let me just take some of the lighting down just a little bit here. You gotta be careful with the gamma correction and the offset, right? You can make things look like they're way, way, way overdone, overcooked. So a little dab will do you with these offset and gamma correction filters. Oh no, that didn't work. Here, let's dial that back to 1. What I was gonna say is we can just enhance that just a little bit and make that pop just like that. Look at that. Now I have less work to do with the paintbrush. Oh yeah, I love it when a plan comes together. All right, so before I start messing around with the paintbrush, I'm going to expand this so I have a little more room over here to work. So image, right? We want to adjust the size. We can go to canvas size. I already have my background color set to black. Let's say you've accidentally set this to, a really, really tasteful color like chartreuse and, bright orange. And you go, oh no. You can click on this and you can screw around here, right? Or you can just go back to the default. You can click this and it goes back to black and white. And depending on what you're using, let's set the background back to black. All right, image, canvas size. Here's where we can set the size. I'm just gonna give myself a lot more space. Go 35 and 40. I'm just gonna go crazy here. Wow, look at all that space. Anyway, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. You can see the edge between the original photograph and not quite a black backdrop after it's photographed, and then the black background that we just added when we expanded the canvas. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go ahead and open up this paintbrush tool. Let's look at the size of that. Let's make that a little bigger. Sometimes size matters. All right. And of course, I'm spray painting white. It doesn't help, does it? So let's just flip these back to the foreground being black so I can use black. I'm just gonna paint with some black here. All right, just gonna go around. It's very subtle on my screen. I wonder if you can even tell this on Zoom with a shared screen, but I just took out like sort of texture with some fuzz on it and blended in that edge so that you don't actually see a hard, crisp edge between the original photograph and all the canvas, new canvas that we created. That was sort of pure black. Uh-oh. Stop that. Sorry, I hit the wrong key on my keyboard. Holding down the space key on my keyboard. And again, that lets me sort of, turns my cursor to a hand I can sort of pan around, right? So get used to using that left hand on the keyboard while your right hand's moving the mouse. And you can be twice as productive. You can get twice as much work done. Well, so long story short, we're gonna expect twice as much work from you from now on. Just kidding, kind of. All right. Let's see. Maybe we just want to center this up just a smidge. I'm just going to just take a little bit out there. And dang, look at that photo. That looks good enough to eat. All right. That one's there. This one, again, for consistency, I would desaturate this, work on this, work on the contrast a little bit. This one has a lot of work to do because of all of this, right? Let's see if I can replicate my success with before using the exposure tool. So if I turn down exposure just a smidge, oh, this is also a blurry, slightly blurry photograph. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's annoying, isn't it? When that happens, because you can never tell when it's a thumbnail on your phone or your camera. Again, with these tools in the exposure setting, a little dab will do you. What happens is when you adjust it really fine, right? Nobody wants that. All right, so back to normal. Let's brighten this up a bit. Or sorry, darken this a bit. There we go. Not too bad, not too bad. We still have some work to do. Again, image pull down, canvas size. I'll just make this dramatically larger. You can always crop it back. And look at that, I forgot to change my background color to black. So when I open, my background color is set to white. When I expanded the canvas, now I have extra white. How do you undo anything? This is the part where you actually scream at me.
Control C.
Control Z. That's right. Thank you, Juan. All right, so I'll set that to black. Try to be a little smarter this time. Canvas size. We'll go with 40 and 35. All right. Let's see here. Oh, that is not how I want to crop that. Hit escape. When in doubt, hit escape. Don't panic. Just hit escape. Now hit enter. There we are. Oh, yeah. Control Z again. Change that back to the foreground color. Maybe I need to add some black paint here. Touch this up a bit. If I get too close, right, you see what happens. Nobody wants that. All right, get a little close and you start to burn those edges. Oh no, right? Okay. One last set of tools I'll go over. And that is the dodge and burn, which is another sort of paintbrush tool, right? Here we actually just apply like a color, right, to the canvas. With dodge and burn, we can use similar brushes and we can brighten things. This is the dodge. And clearly this wood did not need to be brightened at all. Eugh. Let me just undo with that. Undo. There we go. And then if I click and hold the cursor, see that looks like a lollipop. I don't know what that icon's supposed to be, honestly. I click and hold, I can get to the burn tool, which looks like a hand. Again, I don't know what that means. And that's the opposite. I can darken things up. Right. Now, that's not really that useful, except when I want to accentuate, let's say, certain parts, I want to just make it slightly darker. So let me just get a slightly larger brush. Turn my brush slightly larger. It's feathered. It's not like a hard edge. I'm just going to go around. That's way too much pressure. Let's see here. Sorry, I keep going the wrong thing. There's my brush settings. Hardness, I'm going to soften that up more. I'm going to make it larger. So that way I don't have, there we go. That's better. Oh yeah. I'm just going to give that side a little dark, even though this side's still bright, right? I don't know. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. Gotta use that tool sparingly, but it's there. If you want to just selectively paint darkness or lightness as a filter over your drawing, that's how you do it. Anything else that I'm forgetting? There's a chat here. Can you show one more time how you made the foreground and the background? Yes. You're talking about the colors palette here. So you have the palette here. This one is on top of that one. And then if you click this, see the little arrows up here where my cursor is? You flip-flop them. So what was background becomes foreground. What was foreground? Yeah, awesome. Good job, Abby. All right, good question. Any other questions? I'm not the most clear person in the universe, so I guess I suspect that you guys might have some questions here. Oh, and I forgot in this one, adjust. This is the most important part. Let's turn that saturation down. That'll tell us quite a bit. I should have done that to begin with.
Eliana is asking about the selection tool.
Quick rundown on the selection tool I did last class. Yes, I sure can. All right, so again, the toolbar over on the left-hand side. Everybody see where I'm at towards the top left? I moved my cursor around annoyingly in a circle, like it's a buzzy mosquito. There's a couple of tools here. I'm going to click and hold down. So here's where I can draw selection shapes, like a rectangle. I can click and drag, and I can select a certain portion. Now, when I select that portion, I can move that portion around. Don't typically like to do that, though. But now, once I use my paintbrush, let's say I flip that and paint white, I can just paint what's inside that selection, and it won't touch anything else outside that selection. That can be really handy sometimes, right? So that's really handy if you want a rectangle or a square, or an ellipse or circle. Not so much if you're using a wood dowel model, right? And you want to paint around the wood dowel model. So here's some other set of tools. I'm going to click and hold down on this one below the cursor. There's something called Lasso tool, Polygonal Lasso tool, and Magnetic Lasso tool. Lasso tool lets you freehand a shape, like a peanut or a kidney bean. You know, and it's not very helpful if I want to be really, really, really precise around a detailed model like this, right? You know, it's kind of like, it's okay. So let me go to the next one. The Polygonal Lasso tool lets me click to make a polyline selection area. Just clicking each time around this model. And this model isn't very curvy, just a bunch of line segments. And so, you know, I could zoom in and get much more detailed. And that's probably what I'd recommend doing. If you were doing this for realsies, right? Get in here and, you know, start selecting things. Okay. And you could draw a shape like that. And, you know, then suddenly, let's say I went all the way around, which I'm not going to do in front of you because it's just painful to watch me this long. But now I can, you know, yay, paint that without painting the model that I, you know, whatever. Okay. The magnetic lasso tool is also can be pretty handy because I can click and I can just drag my cursor along the edge. And what it does is it looks for the contrast between the subject and the background. And this is automatically sort of snapping like a magnet. And it helps that this is taken with a black background with a high contrast thing. You gotta have some patience still. It's doing a pretty good job of finding the outside edges of this thing, as long as I trace around the edges, right? That's important. I'm just moving my mouse around right now. And again, when you're doing some hardcore Photoshop work, I recommend using a mouse instead of your touchpad on your laptops. Yeah, this is doing a pretty good job. All right, and so you get the idea. Last but not least, we have the magic wand tool. If I click and hold down this last set right underneath the rectangle marquee, it's called the magic wand tool. And then there's another way to get to this, or something similar, is you go to select, pull down, you can say select by color range. Let's look at the magic wand. It really is kind of like magic sometimes. What I can do is I can click, I could say, okay, find all of the pixels that are similar to this black pixel I picked here. That's contiguous, right? So it didn't pick up Alaska and Hawaii over here, but it picked up all of the lower 48 states that were continuous area, right? Does that make sense, the way I'm saying that? Like if you know geography, right? Okay, so then I could also go in and start selecting black areas in here, right, one by one. Now, sometimes it picks up like, ooh, I picked up like a darker brown. Now suddenly it picked up like a bunch of the model, right? You can select the tolerance for how picky it is, how close continuous pixels have to be before they're discounted, right? So you can make this super stingy and only get the, you know, exactly everything like this. Here, let me try that. Let me deselect, and I'll get the magic wand tool and I'll set the tolerance to like 2, right? Now it's only selecting that portion, right? Because it's very picky, right? There's too much variation in this sort of dark grays and blacks in this background, right? So I'd have to go over this more. Or I could be like super unpicky. I could set this to 80, right? And it's gonna pick up like almost the whole model, right? Okay. Now, if I didn't want to do that, I would just want to select everything that's black. And I go to select, pull down, color range, and that pulls up a box. It's similar. And what I like about this is it gives you a real-time preview. I can select, like, let's say I want to select everything that's dark. And then I can select, I can change in real time how picky it is. That they call it fuzziness, but it's really whatever that setting up here was, the sort of tolerance, right, level for it. So now I can select everything that's black within a certain tolerance all at once. I could delete it, right, and change it to a white background instead, or whatever, right? Haha, I don't know. That'd be kind of a weird thing to do. I would just photograph it with white background if you really wanted a white background, but whatever. Okay, So those are for the most part your selection tools, right? Here are the basic shapes, right? Here's how I can start to draw my own shapes, right? Whether I want to freehand them or if I want to, that's not closing for some silly reason, but I'll just hit escape. When in doubt, hit escape key. Or if I want to select things based off of like color values, right? Okay. Magic wand, or select, and then do the color range. Now, let's say I want to select the model and not the background. It'd be much easier for me to select the background, right? And then select everything that's not selected currently. I can invert the selection. I can go select, inverse. Now I have the model selected rather than the background. Ha ha ha, right? So there's lots of different tricks you can pick up. And again, it comes with practice. It comes with experimenting. It comes with challenges and really just sort of applying it to the task at hand. The more you use it, the better off you get, okay? I will post this to YouTube, and here's the process how it works. I actually have to leave Zoom in order to get the screen recording to start processing from Zoom. And then, you know, that takes like half an hour sometimes, depending on how long it is. Probably won't take that long. And then once that's done, it'll come up as an M4 V4 something, whatever the video file is these days. And I can upload that to YouTube. And it takes about 2 seconds. Then it takes about another half an hour or 40 minutes for it to, what do you call it? Post-process, at least just SD version. The HD version will probably take a little longer than that. But once I have it processed in YouTube, then I will, I don't know, send out a link. Yeah, why not? I can send out a link, and I'll send it to all the instructors so that they can pass it on to their sections as well. Okay.